Jake Morrison walked through the long corridor that led to the council chambers. His boots made sharp sounds on the metal floor. Behind him, two other humans followed. Lisa Carter was a naval officer with short black hair and tired eyes. The other was Dr. Rachel Stone, a scientist who looked worried. The three humans had traveled for weeks to reach this place. They came from Earth with one final message for the Galactic Council. Jake hoped the aliens would listen, but he knew they probably would not. The massive doors opened with a loud hiss. The council chamber was huge, bigger than any building on Earth. Hundreds of alien beings sat in rows that went up to the ceiling. Their skin came in every color Jake could think of. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had multiple eyes, or strange shapes that hurt to look at. At the center sat Chairman Veltar. He was 12 feet tall and made of what looked like blue crystal. Light moved through his body when he spoke. The Zenthari had ruled the council for over a century. They thought they were better than everyone else. "The humans have come to speak," Veltar said. His voice echoed through the chamber. "We will hear what they have to say." Jake stepped forward. 300 years ago, humans had joined this council. They thought it would bring peace to the galaxy. Instead, it brought only war. The council used human soldiers to fight their battles. They used human ships to explore dangerous space. They used human scientists to solve their problems. But when the wars ended, the aliens did not thank the humans. They feared them. They said humans were too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous to live freely among civilized species. "Chairman Veltar," Jake began, "I speak for all of humanity today. For 3 centuries we have served this council faithfully. Our sons and daughters have died in your wars. Our best minds have solved your greatest challenges. Our ships have protected your worlds from threats you could not face alone." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some aliens clicked their tongues or made other strange sounds. Jake could see anger in their faces, even the ones that looked nothing like human faces. "Yet how do you repay this service?" Jake continued. "Yesterday this council voted to restrict all human colonies to the outer rim. You want to take our established worlds and give them to other species. You want to break up our families and scatter us across empty space." "The humans are too aggressive," spoke Counselor Thexme from the Aldorian delegation. She looked like a giant insect with golden wings. "Your people start fights wherever they go. You cannot control your violent nature." Jake felt his anger rise but kept his voice calm. "Aggressive? We fought the Vorthak when they invaded Kepler-7. We stopped the Shadow Plague when it threatened to destroy half the galaxy. We built the trade routes that keep your economies alive. We trained your officers and taught your scientists. How is that aggressive?" "You question our authority," said another alien from somewhere in the upper seats. "You refuse to follow orders that do not suit you. You make alliances without our permission." Dr. Stone stepped forward. "We question orders that send our people to die for no good reason. We refuse missions designed to fail. We make alliances with species you ignore because they cannot help your politics." The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Aliens stood up and waved their arms, tentacles, or whatever they used for limbs. Veltar raised one crystalline hand and the noise stopped. "The decision has been made," the chairman said. "Humans will be relocated to designated sectors. Your military will be reduced and placed under alien command. Your colonies will be redistributed to more suitable species. This is final." Jake had expected this answer. Earth's leaders had sent him here knowing the aliens would not change their minds, but they wanted to give the council one last chance to avoid what was coming. "Then I have a counter-proposal," Jake said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. It projected a holographic document in the air between him and the chairman. "This is our ultimatum." The word hung in the air like a threat. Several aliens gasped, others laughed. Humans giving ultimatums to the mighty Galactic Council. It seemed impossible. "You have 72 hours to reverse your decision," Jake continued. "Return our colonies to human control. Remove all restrictions on human movement and settlement. Give us equal representation in council decisions. If you refuse, humanity will withdraw from all council territories and end all cooperation with..." This body. The laughter grew louder. Veltar's crystalline body flashed with angry red light. You dare threaten us? Humans are one species among 200 in this council. You control perhaps 50 worlds out of thousands. Your entire population could fit on a few of our major planets. What makes you think you have any power here? Because, Jake said quietly, you need us more than we need you. The laughter stopped. The chamber fell silent. Jake could feel hundreds of alien eyes staring at him. Look at your recent battles, he continued. The Kepler defense, human tactics, and human soldiers. The Vorthak campaigns, human ships and human commanders. The exploration of the distant arm, human crews risking their lives in unknown space. He paused and looked around the chamber. Look at your science divisions. Who developed the faster-than-light communications you use to coordinate your fleets? Humans. Who created the medical treatments that stopped the last 3 plagues? Humans. Who designed the farming techniques that feed half your worlds? Humans. Jake walked closer to the chairman's platform. Look at your economy. Who runs the trade routes between systems? Who negotiates the deals that keep goods moving? Who trained the pilots that fly your cargo ships through dangerous space? The chamber remained silent. Some aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. We have given you everything, Jake said. Our knowledge, our blood, our lives. And what do we get in return? You treat us like dangerous animals that need to be caged. You fear what we might become if we are allowed to grow freely. Counselor Thexme stood up again. Your species is barely 300 years old in space. We have built civilizations that lasted thousands of years before your planet even had cities. You think you are special because you can fight and adapt quickly, but that same nature makes you a threat to stable society. Perhaps, Jake agreed, but ask yourself this. When the next great threat appears in the galaxy, who will you call? When your perfect civilizations face something they cannot handle with committee meetings and careful protocols, who will you need? He turned to face the entire assembly. You can vote to scatter humanity to empty worlds. You can reduce our military and put us under your command. You can convince yourselves that you are safer with us controlled and contained. But remember this day when the real dangers come. Remember that you chose fear over friendship. Jake walked back to where Lisa and Rachel waited. 72 hours, he said to Chairman Veltar. After that, every human ship leaves council space. Every human colony declares independence. Every human scientist stops sharing their research. Every human soldier lays down their arms in your service. You are bluffing, Veltar said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. Test us, Jake replied. We survived on a dangerous world for millions of years before we reached space. We survived first contact with species that could have destroyed us. We survived every war and plague and disaster this galaxy has thrown at us. We will survive without you, too. The 3 humans turned and walked toward the exit. Behind them, the chamber exploded in angry discussion. Aliens shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some called for immediate action against the human threat. Others demanded more time to consider the consequences. Jake did not look back. He had delivered Earth's message. In 72 hours, the Council would learn whether humanity had been bluffing. But Jake knew the truth. Humanity was done being the Council's weapon. They were ready to forge their own path among the stars with or without alien approval. The galaxy was about to change forever. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of her flagship watching the stars. She had been waiting for this moment for 3 days. Her entire fleet hung in space around the mining station at Kepler 9. 50 ships of different sizes, all with human crews, all ready to leave. The communication device on her wrist buzzed. She looked down at the small screen and saw the coded message she had been expecting. Operation Homeward was now active. Every human military unit in Council space was to begin immediate withdrawal. All ships, this is Admiral Carter, she spoke into her headset. We have received confirmation. Begin Phase 1 of Operation Homeward. All vessels prepare to depart Council space within 6 hours. Around her, the bridge crew moved quickly. They had practiced this many times in secret. Every officer knew their job. Within minutes, signals went out to human ships across 3 star systems. Captain Ben Martinez received the signal aboard his patrol ship near the border with Vorthak space. He had been fighting raiders there for 2 years. His ship was small, but fast, perfect for chasing pirates through asteroid fields. "You heard the Admiral," he told his crew. "Pack everything. We leave nothing behind for the Council." His engineer, a woman named Amy Brooks, who had served with him for 5 years, looked up from her console. "What about the listening posts? We built those to watch for Vorthak attacks." "Destroy them," Ben said. "The Council wanted us gone. They can watch their own borders now." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on hundreds of human ships. Captains opened sealed orders they had carried for months. Crews began shutting down systems and preparing to leave stations they had called home for years. On the agricultural world of New Haven, Pete Johnson walked through his wheat fields one last time. He had spent 15 years turning this barren planet into a garden. The soil had been poisoned when he arrived. Now it grew enough food to feed 3 neighboring systems. His wife Sarah stood beside him holding their young son. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "This is our home." Pete looked at the house they had built with their own hands. "It was our home," he said. "But we are not welcome here anymore. The Council made that clear." Sarah nodded. She had heard the reports from the Council chambers. She knew what the aliens thought of humans now. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow morning," Pete said. "The transport ships will take us to the new colonies beyond Council space. We will start again." Around them, other human families were making the same decision. They loaded their belongings onto trucks and prepared to abandon the farms they had worked so hard to build. The alien settlers who shared the planet watched in confusion. They did not understand why the humans were leaving. Dr. Rachel Stone sat in her laboratory on the medical research station orbiting Altair 4. For 10 years, she had worked to find cures for diseases that killed millions across the galaxy. Her team had developed treatments for 15 different plagues. They had saved entire species from extinction. Now she was deleting all their research from the Council databases. "Are you sure about this?" asked Dr. Henry Walsh, her assistant. "This research could help billions of people." Rachel looked at the data on her screen. Formulas that had taken years to develop, test results that proved their treatments worked, medical knowledge that could prevent the next great plague. "The Council does not want our help," she said. "They want to control us and use us. If they want our research, they can ask for it properly, after they treat us as equals." She pressed the delete key. Thousands of files disappeared from the Council medical database. Other human scientists across the galaxy were doing the same thing. In one day, the Council would lose centuries of human scientific advancement. On the trade station at Junction 5, Merchant Captain Steve Parker supervised the loading of his cargo ships. He had been running supplies between systems for 20 years. His fleet carried food, medicine, and manufactured goods to dozens of worlds. "Where are we taking all this?" asked his first officer, Claire Anderson. "To the independent colonies," Steve said. "The ones the Council ignores because they have nothing valuable to trade. They need these supplies more than the Council worlds do." Claire looked at the cargo manifest. Medicine, farming equipment, communications gear, weapons for defense. "The Council is not going to like losing all these trade routes." Steve smiled. "That is their problem now. They wanted to reduce us to servants. Now they can see how their economy works without human traders." The alien dock workers watched in confusion as human ships departed one after another. They had never seen such a coordinated withdrawal. Some asked questions, but the humans just smiled and wished them luck. In the military command center on Titan Base, General Amy Brooks coordinated the largest military withdrawal in galactic history. On her screens, she could see the positions of every human military unit in Council space. Ships, bases, outposts, listening stations, research facilities. All of them were coming home. "Status report," she called out. "Fleet 7 has cleared the Vega system," reported one officer. "Fleet 12 is loading the last personnel from the border stations. The Marine battalions from Kepler 6 are aboard transports and ready to depart." Amy nodded. 300 Years of human military presence in Council space was ending in a single day. They were not running away. They were choosing to leave with dignity before the Council could force them out. "What about the defense installations?" she asked. "All equipment is being removed or destroyed per protocol," came the reply. "The Council will find empty bases and dead communication arrays." Amy felt a moment of sadness. Human soldiers had died defending those bases. Human engineers had built the installations that protected entire systems from attack. Now they were leaving it all behind, but she also felt pride. Her people were strong enough to walk away from a bad situation. They did not need to stay where they were not wanted. On the colony world of New Texas, families packed their belongings and prepared to leave homes they had built over generations. The planet had been a wasteland when the first human settlers arrived. Now it had cities, farms, and factories that supplied the entire region. Tom Wilson owned a factory that made parts for starships. His grandfather had started the business with nothing but determination and skill. Now Tom employed 3,000 people and supplied half the shipyards in Council space. "What will happen to the factory?" asked his daughter Jenny. "We are taking the important equipment with us," Tom said. "The buildings can stay. Maybe the aliens will figure out how to use them." Jenny looked sad. "I grew up here. All my friends are here." Tom put his arm around her. "You will make new friends in the new colonies, and you will help build something better than what we are leaving behind." The human evacuation was so organized that it surprised even the Council observers. There was no panic, no confusion, no begging to stay. Humans simply packed their things and left. They destroyed what they could not take and gave away what they did not need. The aliens who had lived alongside humans for generations watched in shock. They had never imagined their human neighbors would actually leave. Many had not realized how much they depended on human skills and knowledge. As the last human ships departed from Council space, a strange quiet fell over the galaxy. Trade routes that had operated for centuries suddenly had no ships. Military bases that had protected systems for generations stood empty. Research facilities that had solved countless problems were abandoned. Admiral Carter looked back at Council space one final time before her ship entered the jump gate. Behind her, 50 systems that had been protected by human forces were now on their own. Ahead of her lay the unknown regions where humanity would build its new future. She did not feel sad about leaving. She felt excited about what her people would create without alien interference. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could accomplish when they were truly free. The exodus was complete. Now the real test would begin. Admiral Zixlan of the Aldorian fleet stood on his command bridge and felt confident. His ships were the finest in the galaxy. Each vessel was perfectly designed and built with centuries of advanced technology. His crew was trained in the traditional ways of space warfare that had served the Council for thousands of years. Today he would prove that the Council did not need humans to win battles. The Vorthak horde had attacked the Kepler system 6 months after the human exodus. They thought the Council was weak without their human soldiers. Zixlan would show them how wrong they were. "All ships report ready for battle," his communications officer announced. The Aldorian looked like a giant insect with golden wings that sparkled in the bridge lights. Zixlan nodded. His fleet had 200 ships arranged in perfect formation. Each captain knew exactly what to do. They would approach the enemy in 3 waves, just as the ancient battle manuals instructed. The Vorthak would be overwhelmed by superior numbers and technology. "Begin the attack," he ordered. The Council fleet moved forward in neat lines. Every ship held its position precisely. It was beautiful to watch, like a dance performed in space. The Vorthak fleet was much smaller. Only 50 ships, dark and angular, waited for them near the 4th planet. Zixlan smiled. This would be easy. But something was wrong. The enemy ships did not form up for battle. Instead, they scattered in all directions like leaves in the wind. Some flew straight at the Council fleet. Others circled around the sides. A few disappeared behind the planet's moons. "What are they doing?" asked his tactical officer. "This is not proper battle formation," Zixlan frowned. The Vorthak were supposed to meet them in organized combat. Instead, they were acting like wild animals. "Maintain formation," he ordered. "Follow the battle plan." The first council wave reached the scattered Vorthak ships. But instead of fighting in neat lines, the enemies attacked from every direction at once. They used tricks that made no sense. Some ships pretended to be damaged and then exploded when council vessels came to finish them off. Others hid behind asteroids and ambushed passing ships. Council ships began to explode. The neat formations broke apart as captains tried to chase individual enemies. The beautiful dance became a confused mess of ships flying in all directions. "They are not fighting properly," complained his weapons officer. "This is chaos, not warfare." Zixlan realized with growing horror that his ships were losing. The Vorthak fought like humans used to fight. They used surprise and confusion instead of honor and tradition. They attacked weak points instead of meeting strength with strength. For 300 years, the Council had watched human commanders win battles this way, but they had never learned to do it themselves. They thought such tactics were beneath civilized beings. "Fall back," Zixlan ordered. "Reform at the second moon." But it was too late. The Vorthak ships were everywhere now, striking fast and disappearing before the Council ships could respond. Half of Zixlan's fleet was already destroyed or drifting helpless in space. The retreat became a disaster. Council ships fled in panic, while Vorthak fighters chased them down one by one. Zixlan's own flagship barely escaped through an emergency jump gate. When the battle ended, the Kepler system belonged to the Vorthak horde. The great Council fleet was scattered and broken. Worse, other enemy species had been watching. They saw that the Council could be beaten. On the agricultural world of New Haven, the alien colonists faced a different kind of crisis. The wheat fields that Pete Johnson had carefully tended were dying. Without the human farmers who understood the soil chemistry, the crops were failing. Kethmore was a Zenthari who had taken over Pete's farm. He had watched the human work for years and thought farming looked simple. Plant seeds, add water, harvest crops. How hard could it be? Very hard, as it turned out. The soil needed special treatments that Pete had mixed himself. The crops required careful timing and specific nutrients. The weather patterns had to be understood and predicted. Kethmore stood in the withering fields and felt panic growing in his crystalline chest. His family had invested everything in this farm. If the crops failed, they would lose their home. "Maybe we can contact the humans," suggested his mate Velnara. "Ask them to return and help us." Kethmore's pride would not allow it. "We do not need human help. We are smarter than them. We will figure this out ourselves." But they could not figure it out. Neither could the other alien farmers on New Haven. By harvest time, half the planet's crops had died. The food shortages began immediately. Similar problems appeared across dozens of worlds. Human farmers had not just grown crops. They had created entire ecosystems that supported billions of people. Without their knowledge and skills, these systems began to collapse. On the research station orbiting Altair 4, Dr. Thexval tried to understand the human medical files that remained. Most of the important research had been deleted when Dr. Rachel Stone left. Only basic information survived. A new plague was spreading through the outer colonies. It looked similar to diseases the humans had cured before. But Thexval could not recreate their treatments. The formulas were incomplete. The test data was missing. The techniques were not explained properly. "We need the human doctors back," said his assistant. "They are the only ones who understand this research." Thexval clicked his mandibles in frustration. "We are not children. We can solve this without human help." But people were dying. The plague spread from system to system while the Council scientists struggled to find answers. They had all the equipment the humans had used. They had access to the same laboratories. But they lacked the intuitive understanding that came from years of experience. The humans had made medicine look easy. They found solutions quickly and tested them efficiently. They adapted their treatments when new problems appeared. The alien doctors worked more slowly and carefully, following established procedures that took too long. By the time they developed a treatment, the plague had killed millions. In the commercial sector, the problems were just as severe. Steve Parker's trade routes had connected systems across the galaxy. His ships had carried not just goods but information about what each world needed and when they needed it. Without human traders, communication between systems broke down. Worlds that produced food did not know which worlds were hungry. Planets that made medicine did not know where diseases were spreading. Factory worlds built products that nobody wanted, while other places desperately needed goods that were not being made. The Council tried to replace the human trade networks with their own systems, but their approach was too bureaucratic. By the time requests for supplies went through official channels, emergencies had become disasters. Council Chairman Veltar sat in his private chambers reading reports from across the galaxy. Each one brought worse news: military defeats, crop failures, disease outbreaks, economic collapse. The Council was falling apart without human help. His communications device buzzed, an urgent message from the border systems. The Shadowkin Empire was mobilizing its fleets. They had heard about the Council's weakness and wanted to test it themselves. Veltar felt something he had never experienced before: fear, real, deep fear about the future of his civilization. The Council had seemed so strong with human support. Now they seemed helpless without it. He thought about Jake Morrison's warning. The humans had said the Council needed them more than they needed the Council. At the time, it had seemed like empty boasting. Now it looked like prophecy. But Veltar's pride would not let him admit the mistake. Not yet. Surely the Council could adapt and overcome these temporary problems. They had survived for thousands of years before humans reached space. They would survive this crisis too. He was wrong. But he would not realize it until much later. By then, the damage would be too great to repair. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about the difference between strength and dependence, and the lesson was costing them everything. 2 years had passed since the humans left Council space. Dr. Henry Walsh stood in his new laboratory on the human colony of New Earth and studied the plague samples that had arrived that morning. The disease was spreading through 12 Council systems, killing millions of people. He already knew how to stop it. The cure was based on research he and Dr. Rachel Stone had begun 5 years ago. They had predicted this exact mutation and prepared treatments in advance. The medicine was sitting in storage containers just 50 meters from his laboratory. But the Council had not asked for help. Their pride would not let them admit they needed human assistance. "Another transport just arrived from the refugee camps," said his assistant, Dr. Amy Brooks. She had left her military career to work in medical research. "These are Aldorians who escaped the plague zones." Henry looked at the data pad she handed him. Thousands of sick aliens were fleeing Council space and seeking help in human territories. They came in secret because their governments forbade contact with humans. "Treat them," Henry said. "Give them the medicine they need. We will not let people die because of politics." The human colonies had become a beacon of hope for suffering aliens. Word spread quietly through the galaxy that humans would help anyone who asked, even former enemies. Refugee ships arrived daily at human settlements. Meanwhile, on the human colony of New Dallas, Commander Steve Parker prepared his defense forces for another attack. 3 different hostile species had tried to invade human territory in the past month. They thought the small human colonies would be easy targets. They were wrong. Steve's ships were smaller than the great Council fleets, but they fought with the same tactics that had made humans feared across the galaxy. They used surprise, speed, and cunning to defeat much larger forces. "Enemy fleet approaching from the asteroid belt," reported his sensor officer, Claire Anderson. 40 ships, probably Vorthak raiders. Steve smiled. The Vorthak had grown bold after defeating the Council forces. Now they were trying to expand into human space. "Launch the fighters. Execute Plan 7. His small fleet scattered in all directions, just like the Vorthak had done against the Council. But humans had invented these tactics. They knew how to use them better than anyone else. The battle was over in 30 minutes. Half the Vorthak ships were destroyed. The rest fled back to Council space. They would tell others that humans were still dangerous enemies. Word of human military victories spread quickly. Other species began to reconsider their plans to attack the independent colonies. Some even sent ambassadors asking for protection agreements. In council space, the situation grew worse every day. On New Haven, the crop failures had led to famine. Kethmore sat in his empty house and stared at the dead fields outside his window. His family had already left to find food on other worlds. The alien government had sent agricultural experts to help, but they could not solve the problem. The soil chemistry was too complex. The ecosystem was too delicate. Only humans had understood how to make it work. Other worlds faced similar problems. Industrial planets could not maintain their factories without human engineers. Mining operations failed without human managers who understood dangerous environments. Transportation systems broke down without human pilots who could navigate through hostile space. But the worst crisis was the Shadowkin plague. It had mutated again and was now spreading faster than ever. The Council's medical response was too slow and too bureaucratic. By the time they developed treatments, new mutations had already appeared. Dr. Thexaval sat in his laboratory surrounded by failed experiments. He had been working for 18 months to find a cure. His team had the best equipment in the galaxy. They had unlimited funding and government support. But they could not replicate what humans had done easily. The refugee ships are reporting 90% survival rates in human colonies, his assistant reported. They are saving people we cannot help. Thexval threw his datapad across the room in frustration. How are they doing it? We have the same technology. We have more resources. Why can they solve problems we cannot? His assistant had no answer. None of them understood how humans could work so quickly and effectively. They thought medicine was about following procedures and conducting careful tests. Humans seemed to rely on instinct and experience that could not be taught. Council Chairman Veltar received the daily reports in his office and felt his crystalline body dim with despair. 40% of Council worlds had declared independence or been conquered by enemies. The remaining systems were struggling with disease, famine, and economic collapse. His own species, the Xanthari, were beginning to question his leadership. Some council members spoke openly about removing him from power. They blamed him for driving away the humans. The Shadowkin Empire has crossed our borders, reported his military advisor. They are attacking the mining colonies in the Outer Rim. Our fleets cannot stop them. Veltar looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed enemy positions throughout what used to be secure council territory. His remaining ships were scattered and weak. Many systems had no protection at all. What about the refugees fleeing to human space? He asked. The numbers increase daily, came the reply. Entire colonies are evacuating to human territories. They say conditions there are better than anything in council space. This was the most painful truth of all. The humans were not just surviving without the council. They were thriving. Their new colonies were growing rapidly. Their economy was strong. Their military was small but effective. People from across the galaxy wanted to live under human protection. Meanwhile, the council that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was falling apart. General Amy Brooks stood on the observation deck of the human military command station and watched refugee ships arrive. Her forces were stretched thin, protecting the growing number of alien civilians who sought human help. We have requests for assistance from 17 different systems, reported her aide. They are offering to pay for protection, but they want to keep it secret from their own governments. Amy nodded. The irony was not lost on her. The same aliens who had voted to restrict and control humanity were now begging for human help, but they still would not admit it publicly. What about the trade situation, she asked. Human merchants are making enormous profits, came the reply. We are the only ones who can still move goods safely between systems. Everyone needs what we can provide. The human colonies had become the new center of galactic commerce. Their ships carried medicine to plague-stricken worlds. They transported food to areas with crop failures. They provided security for trade routes that other species could not protect. Captain Ben Martinez docked his ship at the trading station orbiting New California. His cargo hold was full of alien refugees who had paid everything they owned for passage to human space. They came from a dozen different species, all fleeing the chaos in Council territory. "Welcome to New California," he told them over the ship's communication system. "You are safe here. Medical teams will check your health. Employment offices will help you find work. Housing coordinators will help you find places to live." The refugees looked amazed. They had expected to be treated as unwanted burden. Instead, the humans welcomed them and offered to help them build new lives. Similar scenes played out at human colonies across the galaxy. The population was growing rapidly as aliens fled the failing council systems. But instead of creating problems, the refugees brought skills and knowledge that made human society stronger. The galaxy was changing. The old order was collapsing while a new one emerged around human colonies. Species that had never worked together were learning to cooperate under human leadership. Some council members began to speak privately about contacting Earth. Maybe it was time to negotiate. Maybe they could find a way to bring humans back to save what remained of their civilization. But Chairman Veltar still refused to consider it. His pride would not allow him to admit such a massive mistake. He convinced himself that the crisis was temporary. The council would recover and prove they did not need human help. He was wrong, but his stubbornness would cost the galaxy even more before the truth became impossible to deny. 5 years had passed since humanity left council space. Captain Ben Martinez received the emergency transmission while his ship was delivering medical supplies to a refugee camp. The message came directly from council headquarters and was marked with the highest priority codes. Ben looked at the communication with surprise. For 5 years, the council had refused all contact with human forces. Now they were sending desperate messages to any human ship that would listen. "This is Council. Chairman Veltar," the message began. The alien leader looked terrible. His crystalline body was cracked and dim. His voice shook with exhaustion and fear. "I request immediate audience with Earth government representatives. The Galactic Council seeks to negotiate restoration of human membership with full equality and restored territories." Ben forwarded the message to Earth Command and continued his mission. Around him, the refugee camp housed over 2 million aliens from 40 different species. All of them had fled the chaos in council space. All of them now lived under human protection. The message reached President Claire Anderson as she reviewed reports from the expanding human colonies. In 5 years, the human population had doubled with refugees and new settlements. Their territory had grown from 50 worlds to over 300. Most importantly, they had built something the galaxy had never seen before, a truly free society, where any species could live and work in peace. Claire read Veltar's desperate offer with mixed feelings. Part of her felt sorry for the suffering in council space, but she also remembered the humiliation humans had endured for 3 centuries. They had served faithfully and been treated like dangerous animals. "Schedule a galaxy-wide broadcast," she told her communications director. "It is time to give our answer." The transmission reached every system in known space. Human colonies watched with pride. Council worlds watched with desperate hope. Independent systems watched with curiosity about what the humans would say. President Anderson appeared on screens across the galaxy. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but her voice carried the strength of a species that had survived everything the universe could throw at them. "Chairman Veltar," she began, "we have received your offer to restore humanity to the Galactic Council with full equality and returned territories. We thank you for this gesture, but we must respectfully decline." Gasps echoed through council chambers across the galaxy. Many aliens had convinced themselves that humans would eagerly return to save them. The refusal was like a physical blow. 5 years ago, Claire continued, humanity left council space because we were no longer welcome as equal partners. You feared our independence and sought to control our growth. You treated our contributions as obligations rather than gifts. She paused and looked directly into the camera. In those 5 years, we have learned something important. We do not need the council to thrive. But more than that, we have discovered we can build something better. The broadcast cut to images of human colonies. Alien refugees working alongside humans in factories and farms. Children of dozens of species playing together in schools. Scientists from different worlds collaborating on research projects. Military units with mixed crews defending trade routes. We have created a society based on freedom and cooperation rather than hierarchy and control, Claire said. Any species can join us as equals. Any individual can build the life they choose. Any world can govern itself according to its own values. The images showed human ships bringing food to starving worlds. Human doctors treating plague victims without regard for their species. Human teachers sharing knowledge with anyone who wanted to learn. To the people suffering in council space, Claire said, our doors remain open. We will help anyone who asks, regardless of their government's policies. We will continue to provide medicine, food, and protection to those in need. She turned, her attention back to the council leadership. But we will no longer serve as your military force or clean up the messes created by your policies. You wanted independence from human influence. You have it. The broadcast ended with a final message. Any world or system that wanted to join the human alliance was welcome to apply. The only requirements were respect for individual freedom and commitment to peaceful cooperation. Within hours, applications began arriving. Entire systems declared independence from the Council and requested human protection. The exodus that had begun 5 years earlier was now a flood. Chairman Veltar sat alone in his crumbling palace and watched his civilization collapse. Half of the remaining Council worlds had already announced their intention to leave. The rest were struggling with disasters they could not handle alone. His communication device buzzed with urgent messages. Military commanders reported new enemy attacks. Medical officials pleaded for help with spreading plagues. Economic advisors warned of complete financial collapse. But the worst message came from his own homeworld. The Zenthari High Council had voted to remove him from power. They blamed him for the decision to drive away humanity. They wanted to negotiate directly with the humans for mercy. Veltar knew it was too late for mercy. The humans had moved beyond the need for council approval. They had built their own civilization and welcomed anyone who wanted to join them. They had become what the council had always claimed to be, a force for peace and prosperity in the galaxy. The human colony of New Texas. Tom Wilson stood in his new factory and watched workers of 15 different species building starships. His business had grown beyond anything he could have imagined in council space. Here, he was free to innovate and expand without bureaucratic interference. His daughter Jenny, now a young woman, worked as an engineer designing faster-than-light drives. She collaborated with alien scientists who had fled council restrictions on research. Together, they were developing technology that would have been impossible under the old system. "Father," she said during their lunch break, "do you ever regret leaving council space?" Tom looked out the window at the bustling city that had grown around his factory. Humans and aliens worked together, built together, lived together as equals. "Never," he said. "This is what we were meant to become." Admiral Lisa Carter commanded the human defense fleet from her flagship orbiting New Earth. Her forces were smaller than the old council military, but they were more effective. They fought only when necessary and always for good reasons. A communication arrived from the Border Patrol. Another group of council refugees had requested passage to human space. Among them were former council military officers who wanted to join the human forces. "Grant them passage," Lisa ordered. "Process the military applications carefully, but give everyone a chance to prove themselves." She had learned that former enemies could become valuable allies when treated with respect and given opportunities to build better lives. Dr. Rachel Stone worked in her laboratory on New California, developing treatments for diseases that still plagued council space. She shared her research freely with anyone who asked, but she no longer worked under alien oversight. "The latest plague mutation has been contained," her assistant reported. "Our treatment is working in all the refugee camps." Rachel nodded. The work was more satisfying now because it was truly voluntary. They helped people because it was right, not because they were ordered to do so. As the years passed, the human alliance grew stronger while the old council continued to weaken. New species joined regularly, attracted by the freedom and opportunity they found in human space. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the difference between ruling through fear and leading through example. The humans had chosen to lead, by building something better rather than trying to control what already existed. Chairman Veltar lived his final years in exile, watching his former empire crumble while the human alliance flourished. He understood too late that humanity had never been the threat to galactic civilization. They had been its salvation, and by the time the Council realized their mistake, the humans had moved beyond needing their approval or partnership. They had become something greater, truly free.